biggest funk. Thoughts deep, boys steeped in the depths that he sunk. Big stress, depressed in the middle of fall. Sky gray, I late in the thick of it all. I wonder, how long can a human survive just staying alive or carrying the rest of the tribe? Waiting for the day to arrive, or struggling dies, and I be doing way, way more than getting by. So why? Cop myself a cup of coffee, sipping water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Hey, cop myself a cup of coffee, sipping water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Eyes realize life is so much more than just living a day. Every day I can sit and reflect and breathe and connect to myself and all that I've been given. See, giving up is not an option. So when I'm looking at gray skies, I'll be adopting a new way to deal with a test. Lord, relieve me of stress. The rain be looking like when blessings drop in. And so I cop myself a cup of coffee, sip of water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Coffee, sip of water in it softly, cleanse me of stress I hold. Hey, here we go. Yeah, let's do this. Y'all ready? 1, 2, 3. In times of test, let no harm beset me, oh my Lord, oh my Lord.
The nation is under siege. The nation is under siege.
Just keep the fucking immigrants here.
All right. Good evening. And isn't this strange? It's Thursday evening in Bridgeton, Virginia, via Arlington. No, excuse me, Bridgeton, New Jersey. My God. Oh, Dave's going to give me hell for that. Yes, from Bridgeton, New Jersey, via Arlington, Virginia. It is Thursday night on this Thursday, the 1st of May. If you're unfamiliar with this page, this is the Divided We Stand YouTube channel, and we also have our group page, the Divided We Stand group page. So we ask that you subscribe and hit the notification bell on the YouTube channel, and we ask that you join our Facebook group page. It's just a matter of me approving you, and we should be okay. So please, please consider being a part of Divided We Stand, and understand that we are not monetized. We're not looking for money from you. Okay, so that's very, very important. Yeah, so without any further ado, we have our good friend, our educator, former educator, look, I guess he educates all the time, former journalist, former everything, and even more.
Yeah, that's the idea right now. Former everything. Listen, Brian, there were so many things just in your introduction that I could talk about, but I think the best was how definitive you were that this is Thursday on Thursday. I thought that comment, like now, but it would be much better if you said this is Thursday on Friday.
Let's start the show again.
Oh, Lordy. Listen,
Christ.
The way we started, I'll take credit or blame for this show. As most of you know that are regular listeners, I'll be in Eastern Europe, so I'll be sending things to Brian, but I won't be live on the show. But this week was, actually, Brian, from when we went off the air Sunday, right, to right this moment, there are 8 major stories, each of which should devote, a week to a month. And what we're seeing is, let's use just, it's unpresidential and it's also unprecedented. So let me start right now real quickly. My second home is Bridgeton, where you live. My third home is Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where my son and daughter-in-law and grandchildren live. And as we are speaking, Mr. Trump is probably off the stage by now, but he went down to the University of Alabama. Now, I know the backstory because of what happened. The University of Alabama did not invite him, okay? He has some contacts at the university who are Mar-a-Lago people, big contributors. And so he reached out to them and they okayed it, which created quite a turmoil because graduation is not supposed to be about the president of the United States. It's supposed to be about the students. So what they ended up doing, he is speaking tonight claiming that he's giving a graduation speech, but that is not true. Why should it be? It's Trump. Why would it be true? Graduation is the second, third, and fourth. Large university 3-day graduations are not unusual. So he's down there, and they invited everybody graduating in the class of 2025. And you could get a +1 to go. And they're aware that one of the techniques that we can use to make his crowd smaller is, of course, reserving tickets and not going. So there's some of that going on. But what I found interesting is, of course, it's Trump being Trump, lying about what he's there for, lying about what he's doing, lying while he's on stage, lying while he's on the airplane. But in Tuscaloosa, in a matter of, I think, 36 hours, because they submitted them, they got 25,000 signatures of residents of Tuscaloosa saying, don't come. That's Alabama, okay?
Right, and that's...
Also tonight, there are at least two, possibly 3 separate rallies, anti-Trump, going on simultaneously. And they have some good speakers. Beto O'Rourke is speaking. Doug Jones, the former senator of Alabama, is speaking. So even in red state Alabama, I think Mr. Trump is running into problems. And that, if we had a theme for this week, it would be Trump in free fall. And he really is. Now, Trump in free fall may be more dangerous certain days than Trump thinking that he's safe. There's no way after this week. So, Brian, what did you find this week that you want to start with commenting on? So much, but what are you gonna? What's some of the things you're thinking?
Well, and this is not exactly anything new, but we looked at what's happened with the stock market. We've seen this idea about paying people to have babies, which is a very Putin-esque move. I mean, you look at the economy, you look at what he's been blaming Biden, and we know it's all just a tornado of bullshit. But still, these people believe he's the best choice, and you got to give him a chance. And look, we've said over and over again, these people are just they're locked in. It's useless to try to convince them of anything. It just bothers me that there has to be such a hatred for us that, to me, that creates a real problem in the future if there ever is a problem where he... Well, here's my fear. I'll be honest with you. I know I'm jumping way ahead. I said this last week, but Putin, one of his fascinating things that he does is he gets the paramilitary groups to come in and beat on people. So he gets people who are within their own neighborhoods who are, they're in a military uniform, but they're not really licensed police.
Right.
Although he has police that'll do the dirty work. But when you start getting locals to have a neighbor turn on a neighbor, that's where I think it's bad. I think now it looks like Trump doesn't necessarily want a civil war where all of a sudden the gun-toting Republicans come out and start pointing guns at us, but forming quasi-militias, having like the Kyle Rittenhouses. And now I just have a feeling that that's where he would like to go. So he doesn't even have to guess whether it's legal or not to bring in a military in or a National Guard. He actually sets up paramilitary groups. And again, everything, Dave, that Trump's been doing, like there's so many little factoids that you know that he doesn't understand or even know about, but you know that there has to be people behind the scenes, and therein lies what bothers me most is there is a cabal of people who do know what they're talking about, that do know what they want to do. The 2025 document, whatever you want to talk about, there seems to be, for want of a better word, this like Q type government out there, and they're going to get these Q type people to basically come out. I mean, I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I have a feeling that's where he wants to go. And we can talk about anything tonight, but that's what really worries me the most.
And Brian, you would be a fool if you weren't worried about that. And you're far from being a fool. Okay. Now, first, I have to do this every show, and I know it's preaching to the choir, but I want everybody to take this up. This is a fact. I saw at least 3 MAGA people whom I know saying half the country, it is not freaking half the country. Here are the statistics. In love with Donald Trump, 1/3 of the country, approximately. That's not going anywhere. I think at this point, he could come in and, remember the old medieval, what was it? I had a term for it, escapes me right now, but where the Lord could come in and have sexual relations with the wife at any time because you were the Lord's property. I mean, that's where Trump is. And these people would willingly give their wives to him, I'm sure. Their cult, it is a cult. Now, my solution is very simple and impossible to do. I am at a point now where I want a divided country. I want nothing to do with them. I want absolutely
Sounds
nothing.
Logical.
Nothing to do with them. They do not, and because there's no way to reach them. It is 1/3 of the country. So, how do you really do that? I suppose the only possibility, and I don't see this as reality, was if things continue to deteriorate, where if indeed California and Washington and Oregon would somehow secede and form their own kind of government, and maybe some Eastern, but really it's impractical. Okay, so it's just I don't see this. We're never going to get back together. That's just clearly the way it is. It's just never.
But can it sustain itself, Dave? We're in this position where people like yourself and myself are completely separated from people, where we don't have any discussions with people.
Don't want any.
Can't. And neither do I. Believe me. I
know you don't.
Yeah, this is the situation at work. This is the situation on the streets. This is the situation in the neighborhood. There is no sense talking to them. And families, right?
Families, yeah.
Most importantly, families.
Here's some things that I've been telling people. First of all, quite honestly, I've not lost a minute of sleep. I keep my numbers. 64, the original time, 64 Facebook. I use acquaintances. I wish they're not friends necessarily, but Facebook contacts bolted, or I bolted them. And the numbers were 61. Yeah, 61 of those 64 unfriended me, and I defriended 3. I still have quite a few contacts on there. I was just doing an informal the other night. I might be close to 20. I'm not at 20, but maybe 17, 18. And people say, some people say, why do you keep them on there? And I said, for a couple of reasons. One is, I believe, and I don't expect I believe, I don't care if anybody else to believe, that I'm almost a free speech absolutist. I don't really care what they say. And I like what Oscar Wilde said. I've lived by it most of my life. Oscar Wilde said, I may not agree with what you say, but I'll defend with my life the right for you to make a fool of yourself. And that's really what they're doing, okay? I mean, no sane person can look at that. When they're error-filled, they're wrong, They have no basis. They're led by a lunatic. But,
Literally.
as you point out, no, literally. That's not. I would. There's no question. So, but the fear is, and you've pointed it out, and others, they are more violent than we are. Okay, clearly, we don't have. I don't think there's a left wing. They talk about Antifa, and again, I'm not an expert, but I did hang around with some of Antifa people here. They're just disorganized. I mean, they're not. It's not.
Right.
Antifa is not this.
It's like Anonymous or something.
It's not. It is. It's just like almost Occupy. In fact, that's a lot of that came from that period. And one of the reasons Occupy, it didn't fail the way they did, because Occupy did something very important. It gave us the term the 1%. That really came out of that. So they showed us. So back to this fear. But again, you're looking at 2/3 of the country opposing Trump or not being in his camp. So what does that mean? Well, I would bet, what's the old say, bet my bottom dollar? But I can't see any person who despises Trump now moving to his camp at any time, because he's only going to get worse. So that's a solid third. And I do see he's going to be so ineffective and so bad and so horrible that I don't see anybody in that third that didn't vote for him going there. So the opposition to Trump will only grow. Again, what does that do? Well, maybe if something gets really whack, we will see something. The last really military organization from the left, and it was quasi-military, it was the Black Panthers. And they were not half as bad as J. Edgar Hoover portrayed them. But still, I mean, it doesn't mean people won't start taking up arms on the left. It really doesn't.
Well, they better get a lot of arms, because the right has a lot of arms too. And
Well,
they sell the arms, so that's even worse, because they may not sell to the
No,
left.
that's true. But what it comes down to is the military and the National Guard. It really is what it comes down to. And they're down the middle. They're not down the middle. I mean, they're a third, and a third too. So does the 2/3?
But Dave, I mean, let me ask you: Does that matter about the third? If first of all, he doesn't care about that. He just wants to, as you say, put out fake this and fake that. So if people don't believe in that third, and they think it's
All right. Let me ask you a question, Brian. Okay, your cousin, who we know is a Trump.
right,
All right. You go to a rally. You are killed at that rally.
mm-hmm.
Does he still feel as strongly about Donald Trump once he's taken your life? And I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. And you can say whatever
He's going to
you
feel bad that I was shot, but I
Dead.
don't think
Not
he's
just shot,
right.
dead.
Well, with him, I don't. If you want my honest answer, I don't
Yeah,
think he would
okay.
change his view of Trump.
Okay. And you may be right.
And I may be wrong, but I'm just saying if that's my first impression.
I understand that. But it's one thing, okay? Now, you can't go back and say this happened and now this is going to happen. But people don't change. That's my impression.
Things change people, but people don't change themselves.
And I'm talking about from the beginning of time to now.
Right. There's our
Okay.
determinism there, which I think you agree with that.
I agree with parts of that, yes. And I think the one incident that really changed, Brian, and I was right there, I mean, not at there, but was Kent State.
Mm.
Because that was Americans killing Americans.
Coming up in 3 days is the anniversary.
Right, correct. And that's a big moment.
55
when that
years
happens.
ago.
Now, it's one thing for a crazed shooter to go into a school and kill kids, right? Because the other side could say, well, it's just a crazy guy.
Right.
Now, of course, do you realize that, again, we can I'll battle anybody with the statistics. There have been more Trump MAGA people as lone killers than there have left every day of the week. And, they can hide behind, the MAGA can hide behind, well, they were this. The statistics don't bear out anything they say. There are more criminals doing worse crimes in the Trump administration than 99.1, I'm making that number up, but of the immigrants in America. But of course, that doesn't matter. Now, the other thing is, and today, of course, May Day, which is historically a protest day, especially for labor, equated, to the Communist Day of Solidarity. There were five, not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different protests in Washington, D.C. But that's not what's important. It was across the country. And again, I want to reinforce every time my belief, because I think it's important, that this is one of the things where times have changed. And what I mean by that, once upon a time in my lifetime, as recently, maybe even as, definitely, probably the Desert Storm, Desert Shield, those moments, when you were going to protest, you needed a massive protest, right? That's what you needed. Mm-hmm. You do not need that now. Do you realize if something happens in Idaho,
it's covered.
In 7 seconds, it's on the internet. So it's a whole different breed of media. Now, I know that the media, and I can understand that today, there was a limited media coverage of I didn't get to all 5, but I got to 2 of the protests. But you don't need it, because guess what? Everybody is a journalist. Everybody out there was filming. Now, I'll just want to take for a moment, Brian, to say what I saw today. It was really kind of it wasn't a revelation or anything, but this was a moment that I want to capture. So I'm standing there. Now, remember, I'm familiar with Washington, D.C. I've lived here 14 years. I'm very familiar with Lafayette Square, which is across from the White House, which is where the protests usually end up if they're at the White House. So I'm standing there talking to my friend Filipos, who runs the 24/7 Peace Vigil protest that is literally there 24/7, 365. But anyway, and I turned for a moment. He was talking to somebody else. And so I turned to my left, and there's the White House, right? And there are people in front of the White House with signs, small group picketing, right, or protesting. And then there's a guy, I give him a lot of credit, but it's not going to work. A black gentleman comes every single day to Lafayette Park with the sign, "We cannot be divided, we must unite." Mm-hmm. And he plays music, and he'll talk to people about it, and I give him a lot of credit. He's like Don Quixote, jousting at those windmills. But he's playing, and it just happened to be, he was playing the Star Spangled Banner. Okay, so as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, well, that's protesting here. Then I looked at Filipos, and he's talking to 3 women from the Netherlands about America. Mm-hmm. And then I turn, and there is they brought in a giant copy of the Declaration of Independence, and they have that projected tied up, and people are signing it by the dozens, right? And then there's a protest of Hispanic, hey everybody, Hispanic workers who are protesting. What a cross section! And what I'm thinking is, this is why we can be optimistic, if you want to be. Now, it should be guarded optimism. There's a difference between belief and hope, and but they are both optimistic, as is faith. They're all optimistic endeavors. And so looking at that today kind of crystallized my thoughts for tonight. So I want to go over and you stop anywhere where you want to comment. Just some things that I saw this week that I think are wonderful for us and bad for Trump. And they're the types of things that are not just bad today for Trump. Okay, let's go to his cabinet people. So Pete Hegseth there, Mr. Who nobody will believe is sober, even if he is.
Right.
So he comes out this week and he ends the Women, Peace, and Security program at the Department of Defense. And he says, this was one of what Joe Biden's woke. No, it wasn't. Donald Trump put it in. It was a pet project of Ivanka's. Now, Pete obviously doesn't know what the hell he's doing, right? You don't take the boss's program out when the boss's daughter, so he didn't win any friends with that. How he cannot, he will not, it's impossible for him to remain as secretary. We already saw Trump move today to replace the first 2 members, well, one of his cabinet and the assistant. So now that's open. They were the wrong person. It should have been Mr. Pete, should have been the one to go, but at least it's there. Then you've got his press secretary exploding at a morning press conference, screaming about Amazon and Jeff Bezos. What was she screaming about? There was a report in Punchbowl, which is a sort of like a Substack kind of thing that goes on, writers, that Amazon was going to list the cost of tariff on their purchases. So in other words, it went from $24 to $36 and, 15, whatever that was, and they would do that. Well, she just explodes and screaming and all this kind of stuff. A sane person would have picked up the phone and gotten a hold of Bezos, right? Mm-hmm. Bezos is a big contributor. Remember, he gave $1 million to Trump's campaign. He was one of the billionaires that gave $1 million.
Right.
Well, Trump, supposedly, in a lucid moment, and just think about that, he's more lucid than his press secretary for any moment. He gets a hold of Bezos. Bezos says, no, that's not true. That's not true at all. He said, it was discussed, and don't ask me the name of it. It's like a small subsidiary of Amazon. Like I'm going to say Amazon Cheap. I'm going to call it. It's not that. And because they were in direct with a couple of the rip-off Chinese, discounts, they were going to do it on there. Now, that may or may not be true, right? And Bezos could be lying through his teeth. He could be telling the truth. But that, again, is a microcosm of what we've got going. Now, here's the real irony. Punchbowl is supported by Amazon, a news agency supported. So it's breaking down all over the place. You see, there's just no continuity. So Bezos can't feel good about that. Trump can't feel good about that. The reporter, maybe he just did blow it. One time, for example, how that happens is one of the biggest stories I ever wrote was the bankruptcy of Seabrook Farms, which was a huge, huge deal. And I got contacted, or the newspaper got contacted by the attorney who was going to sue and do this and do that because they filed for Chapter 11 under the Bankruptcy Act. Plain semantics, right? But technically I was wrong, okay? But the newspaper stayed with me and supported it, and we wrote it out. So maybe that's what happened with maybe that's what happened with the Punchbowl reporter who heard about this small thing in Amazon, and it doesn't matter how it got there. Mm-hmm. Now, another thing that I preach, and when I say preach, I mean really, I'm guilty of this too now. I'm going to wait 48 hours, I think, before I post anything to see if it's true. This week, there were 4 or 5 instances of things out there that I swore, it made sense. It was true. It wasn't. And the reason I say it wasn't, Snopes went into it and said either there's not enough evidence to show that that's true, or it was completely false. So again, to everybody out there, I know we want to get the message, but it will get there. It really doesn't matter if it's, today or Friday or Monday when it gets there. And we should not want to make more of a mess than there already is of misinformation, disinformation, and blatant lies. Mm-hmm. So the one that I thought for sure, could not be true. There was no way this was true. There was what do you call them now? I don't even know what they call them on Truth Social, which of course is Donald Trump's version of Twitter, from Lindsey Graham, the senator from South Carolina. And he said, it's just in this great news, I understand that Donald Trump is open to the idea of being the next pope. Let's stop there for a moment. What the hell is that about? There's more chance of me being pope than there is Donald Trump. So, So I said, that's just made up, right? That can't be. Nope. That one was real. Trump corrupts everything he touches. Every single thing he touches. So he invites, as presidents have done for years, he invites the Philadelphia Eagles to the White House as the Super Bowl champions. Mm-hmm. Standard procedure. Now, of course, he's already come out in favor of the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl because he was in a war with Taylor Swift, right? Who is the girlfriend of the tight end of the Kansas City Chiefs. But Jeff Lurie, I think, made a right decision. When the last time they won the Super Bowl, Eagles won the Super Bowl, and Trump was in office, the team voted not to go. This time, they did not vote as a team. Lurie left it up to individual players. Okay? Now, you've got players who don't like Trump. Players aren't going to go. But I think, Brian, and you're a huge Philadelphia fan like I am, if you had to give credit, really, there's two people that I think won the Super Bowl. I mean, the whole team won. But one is Jalen Hurts' performance, right? But even above that, the real difference was Saquon Barkley, the running back. That was one of the great...
Right, because they had to focus on him, and then...
One of the great seasons of all time. Well, Saquon Barkley, I don't know much about him. He's a hell of a running back. Penn State, so has area ties. I guess Trump, well, not I guess, he did. Trump invited him to play golf at his New Jersey Bedminster golf course. And Saquon went, and he played, and Trump said, well, you're going to come down, why don't you come down tonight to D.C.? So he flew down on Air Force One, and the Philadelphia media exploded, and the Twitterverse. Now, here's the interesting thing. Jalen Hurts and 14 other players did not go, all of whom were black. Now, that doesn't mean that it was a black-white split. All it means was, and black players went, but I just thought that was interesting that for whatever reason, and, it's just sad. There's most of this is angry and bad stuff, but this is just sad stuff. When a football team can't go to the White House because Trump is there, and the person who Trump is, the despicable, deplorable, dastardly, dangerous, dumb, he's all of those things, that they can't go and can't have peace. Now, will that play out? And sports are way overrated in America. I love them, but my point is everything he does, right? So he realizes this is why he's in trouble even he's realizing. His numbers are plummeting. I mean, plummeting, right? He now has the lowest, he came in with the lowest approval rating of any president in 80 years. I went back, I just thought this was interesting. So I went back to look who the president was 80 years ago. That 80 years ago they started the approval rating. So he has if it started then, he has the lowest, even lower than his first time. Yeah, we'll come back to that. That's a great question. We'll come back to that. Now, what happens is he is now somewhere on almost all polling, 39 to 41%. That's it. Now, there's that third, right? They're probably not going anywhere. But he, of course, can't take that. So he attacks everyone, including Fox News, which is his home team, about these numbers are not true and they can't be true. Well, they are true. Okay, they are true. But he being, oh my God, this can't be true, attacks him. But in those interviews, that's why he went to the mainstream press that he hates. He just can't keep his mouth shut. This was a quote that has really infuriated the world, and it should. I now run the country and the world. Now, you really think anybody out there? Now, Putin laughs because he runs Trump.
He meant not run, but ruin.
Well, if you put one more letter in there, you would have it.
Right.
Now, this gets really bizarre. So you've got the El Salvadorian dictator. Now, he's already come out in Spanish and English. What he wants to be is the cool dictator. What is that?
Right, what is that?
Right? But it's cool dictator. But did you see this week? He's backing off now because his own people don't think it's right. And he's
backing off the people with the telling him the economics of the country, what he has to do with the with the tariffs, and to back off the stock market. And by the way, you see the stock market; it keeps going up and down and coming back up. I cannot fucking believe it.
No, but the to think that this dictator of a Latin American country thinks that Trump's gone too far. Wow. I mean, he's saying, and so now Trump, there are talks, think about this, and these have been confirmed, there are talks with some African nations about housing prisoners there. Okay. But one of the African dictators who, he said, Mr. Trump, he's a nobody. I would not take orders from him. I will not go. I will not talk to him. So even dictators are saying, not. We don't have any Canadians on tonight. I mean, they may be listening, but, we don't have Kevin or anybody on. But basically, Donald Trump helped decide who the Canadian Prime Minister is. The party that won, and they didn't win. I mean, they didn't win the majority, but they have the Prime Minister. He was the person who stood up to Donald Trump, and we've heard that from Kevin and others, right? I mean,
right. Veg.
So right. So there's there's all this stuff going on, all of which is not good for Trump, which is good for us. But I thought this. Two reasons above all he should not be president. One is if he has more than $100, and I think he does, he is the worst dressed president in the history of America. Forget about he misdressed for the Pope. His tie, his suits don't fit. No, I'm making that. I mean, I'm not making it up. I'm making that facetious. But here's one. So he was being interviewed by ABC News, live on camera, and he had a copy of the Constitution in the Oval Office, which is not a bad thing. And so the journalist said, Mr. Trump, that's the Constitution. What does it mean? What does it mean to you? And hold on, because I want to get this exactly right. So I'm going to refer to something here for a moment. So give me just a second to pull it up. And here is his response. So the reporter doing the interview was Terry Moran. And Terry says, what does the Declaration of Independence mean to you? Mm-hmm. And here is Trump's verbatim reply. Well, it means exactly what it says. It's a declaration. A declaration of unity, love, and respect. Two things about that. That is not a declaration of unity, love, and respect. That is a declaration saying why we're going to kick King George's ass. Okay, the Declaration of Independence. Secondly, if Trump did believe it was a declaration of unity, love, and respect, they are three qualities that he does not possess. So since he doesn't possess them, he can't give them, which means he's in violation of our second greatest document. The man has proved one thing to me. I honestly thought that an insidious takeover of America would require a modicum of intelligence. Donald Trump has disproved that theory. All you need to be is a good con man. And as my daddy used to say, give the devil his due. Donald Trump is the greatest con man in the history of America. Greater than P.T. Barnum.
Are you sure there is the con. I even wrote an article on Substack about it. There is the con there. There's no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. However, Dave, for some people, they don't need to be conned because they've conned themselves and they are filled with hate. And you and I have had our arguments about determinism, right. If you will. Determinism, in terms of what's going on with Trump, or I should say with his constituents, I think that's, like we say, the past is so big to influence the present. Right. And there's these years and years of just pent-up hatred for everything that's liberal. There are just people, again, who take this opinion that they want to have freedom from the wokeness. They consider that freedom, and that's right. 180 degrees from what you and I are talking about with freedom.
No, you're right.
So that concept of freedom is absolutely different in their minds, and this is why I say I still, he can shoot himself in the dick as much as he wants. They're going to go with him.
But that's a con.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It's a con.
What I'm saying is he has no center. He doesn't have any belief. He doesn't have any understanding of how anything works, do you know how hard it is, Brian? And you do. I mean, you're playing the everyman now. To bankrupt 3 casinos, do you know how big the edge is to the house? That's almost impossible to do. And he's done it. And he's proving, because he's bankrupting America, the same types of decisions. Tariffs, where he came up with that idea, and he's not, he says, well, America, now he has started to show some cracks here. He said, well, America was best in 1903. What? You know when America was best? Prior to January 20th, when he took over. That's when America was, and with anybody else, it would be better. Now, there are a couple things have to happen. One is your very real fear. We have to keep an eye on that. And I don't know.
I mean, that hasn't happened much, but you didn't. I would consider Kyle Rittenhouse a paramilitary act, and he got away with it.
Absolutely. Now, right now, as we speak today, the courts are holding, but we haven't gotten much up to the Supreme Court level. That's the ultimate. Once they rule, it's done, unless they choose to revisit it. Today, a Trump appointee in Texas said you can't use the Alien Act to send these people away because we're not at war. So Trump, if you look at what Trump's, I mean, he's getting kicked in the court of public opinion. He's getting kicked in the court of law. He does have enough support in Congress, right now. But they're down to 2 or 3 people don't show up. It can go the other way.
Oh, by the way, do you think there are any other Democrats that are going to do a switch?
No.
Because that seems to happen when things get real tight. I mean, I have no information whatsoever.
No. What I would say is, first of all, those of you who don't know, Brian and I, lived in the same area until we didn't, but we're both South Jersey boys. And the congressman that represents where I lived and where Brian lives now was a Democrat, but he's a Democrat in name only. And he realized that he needed to become a Republican, and he did to win. But even he came out, now what he says verbally and what he votes is different, but he came out this week and said, basically, I cannot support something that cuts Medicaid and Medicare by more than. So he didn't say no cuts. Elon Musk, where's Mr. Musk right now? Mr. Musk is on his way out, somewhat by choice. The word on the street, and I don't have people in high places knowing this, but I think it's probably true, is the board of directors, although they denied it. But I think they kind of said, hey, get your ass back here or we're firing you, Elon. And he can be fired. He serves at the board of directors, even though he's the head of Tesla. Tesla's down 74% now, sales in Europe. Now, Elon, of course, doubles down like Trump. Probably got some Roy Cohn here. Now, I guarantee you, if Elon were truthful, that in the equivalent of the South African high school, that somebody pantsed him and put him in a locker. I guarantee you that for what he is. But he comes across as something else. They've now traced it, and again, I'm saying this hesitantly, but I believe it to be true. They've traced it back. He's sending messages to Instagram models saying he would like to father their child because we have to create a race of supermen, and I am a superman when it comes to jeans. And I don't think he was talking about blue jeans. That's kind of Hitler-esque, don't you think, eugenics?
Absolutely.
And yeah, so you have it. Now, he does not care. He will never stop ever. Put that back up a minute. And then I want to get back to the quote earlier that had been, okay. He does not care. He will not stop ever. He's going to put troops in the streets. Yeah, I believe that's true. But here's, and again, I'm not an expert in this, but where I live, I get to talk to a lot of military people simply because they live in my building. I'm 2 metro stops from the Pentagon. Military's everywhere. I mean, riding up, every time I get on the elevator. No, that's not true every time. Every third time I get on the elevator, I'm with someone. from the military, and some of them will talk, some of them won't. It's one thing to put the military to order the military into the streets. It's another for them to go. And they're two very different things. And what happens if they don't? What happens, again, we're talking about this third, which is permeates.
And we know that
everything
Trump understands that, though. If anybody
I don't think he does. I don't think he does. I think he honestly believes the quote that he said, I now run the country and I run the world. I really believe he believes that. Because you've said it too, Brian. You said, when has he ever had a setback that he acknowledged? It's always somebody else's fault. It's always somebody else's fault. When the economy, he was handed, and this, I don't really follow the economics of it. I think we made a mistake about talking about equating the economy with the stock market. I think that's absurd and insane. However, I guess that was one of the bases. It was said that Joe Biden put together the best recovery from COVID of any country in the world.
Absolutely.
And Trump has taken that in 3 months and completely destroyed it. Now, can you find that quote? I even forget what it was, but something I said I would get back to. It had my name in it. And it was a good quote from, I don't even forget who it was from.
I think it was from Lisa. Let me see.
I think it was Lisa, yeah. I think you're right. See if you can find it, because I always like to respond to anything people tell us. While we're waiting, I think another positive sign is the continued, well, it's a positive and worrisome sign at the same time, is the reflection of numbers that Bernie and AOC are pulling with their joint thing. The problem is the Democrats are still right now staying with the Schumers, and that's a mistake. It's a grave mistake, but it's what they're doing. They don't call for my advice. Did you find it? I mean, I know it's there. I don't know. Here, yeah, it was a while ago, but I don't want to, not get.
I know there's something.
Oh,
else.
Dave, does he believe Dave, he does believe it. He is friggin' out there. Yeah, it was another question that Lisa had. Lisa, put it back up if you have it, if you're still with us.
Hold on a second.
No.
See, Tron is the only thing he knows. Tron has nothing at all, in all due respect.
Yeah, that's
the ringtone.
I have to, my granddaughter has, granddaughters make us.
Year or no?
Dave, forgive me, but didn't. Yes, that's the one. Dave, forgive me, but didn't sports ball take out Rome? And Lisa is right. And what the theory was, but see, it was a theory in Rome, was the idea, and this is the difference between Donald Trump and the Roman emperors. The idea was to give the people something that took their mind off of what the Senate and the dictators were doing. Right. And part of that was, the gladiatorial contests and that kind of thing, But Trump is in a world where that's already been done. I urge everyone out there, if you have time to read, there's a book that stands the test of time. It's by one of America's greatest thinkers, I think, Neil Postman. And it's called Amusing Ourselves to Death. And it came out in the early 70s. And basically it sets up this idea. And we follow it through. Okay? Sports fans are rabid, supporting their teams and not supporting their teams. So you've got that, maybe more so than politics. You certainly have this. This is true. If you didn't have, okay, so follow my logic here, and if anybody can diffuse it, do it, because I always like when I'm proven wrong. I'm working on this theory. So once we didn't have radio, correct?
Right.
So everything had to be spoken or written. Kept close, couldn't spread it too much. I mean, the New York Times is not going to get to California, for 3 weeks on the Overland Express. So news is very localized, don't get it. Then comes radio, and that begins the cult of personality. But it still forces you to use your imagination, right? Because you don't see anything. Then comes television and movies first, then television. So movies, great art, going out, but you started to go out to see it. You had the newsreels, but they were very short. Then you get TV, you get to televised news. But journalism, one of my two fields, has always been about the money, more so in TV than anywhere else, right? So what happens is we keep going, we get this cult of personality, we find out, that this works, that works. We begin niching, which by that, finding a niche for this and that and the other. And then we get to the point of reality TV. Now, the reason we get to reality TV is because it's cheaper to produce by a substantial margin. Now, anyone who thinks reality TV is not scripted is absolutely insane. Okay, it is. There are moments, it's not scripted the way a movie or a TV show is, where everything's
outlined like Larry David does Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Exactly, Brian. That's exactly what it is. Well, along comes somebody who says, we should get that Trump guy. And we get The Apprentice, right? There is no chance of Donald Trump being president without The Apprentice paving the way. And so back to Lisa's point, where the emperors and those who were kind of had to create the circus just has to be used. And that's where the Donald Trump, the con man, comes in. He's very good at using the circus. He benefited from it. Now, you can get all the interviews you want now. They're coming out. They said Donald Trump sometimes had to do lines 15 to 18 times.
Well, you saw, after January 6th, how he kept, I can't say that. And you keep going over and over and over again.
Yeah. Now,
there's lies.
Now, we know that there's something horribly wrong with Donald Trump. We know that.
Yes.
But what we don't know is it getting worse? And is it dementia?
Well, it's quite bad enough.
Is idiocy? And we don't know what he's going to do, really forced to know that it's over. Because in his Roy Cohn world, he's never had that. Right? Now, it's one thing to say he was able to escape and the Supreme Court gave him the get out of jail card free, which it never should have done. But he could still be impeached. Now, right now, he will not be. He will not be. There aren't enough Republican votes out there in the Senate. But if this continues, and Brian, then back to your point, you're not. You'd say people say, or you say I'm negative, meaning you're negative. You're not. You look at it. If we hold elections, in the midterm elections, and if they're fair, both big ifs, okay. I don't see the Republicans keeping the House. The Senate, it'll depend on how bad it is. The highest number of congressmen did not run in 2024. And it looks like 2026, it'll be even higher. You're seeing them retire now. You're seeing them get out now. It can't be fun being in Congress. It really can't, unless you're Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert or, somebody like that. Or somebody like Jim Jordan, who doesn't have sense to come in out of the rain. So I would think that pretty much a certainty. And if that's the one thing, would Trump leave the White House if he were impeached? And who's going to escort him out? And there you are. So, but again, I do not see any way where he will be able to bargain. Even his, transactional bargaining is coming from more and more a power of weakness. And trust me, the senators and the congressmen know that. What they're waiting for is the moment when it appears that they cannot win in their district. And they will jump ship.
Right.
They will jump ship because now, before we make heroes out of the Democrats, they're in disarray too. That's not tonight's show. But they're at a point where I think, again, I really do think right now the seniority way that they run the Senate is wrong, and so I think the Democrats have to figure out how to get there. Whether it's I mean, and I don't know. Well, Brian, I ask you, if tomorrow they said we're going to hold a special election, what Democrat do you think would be the most formidable against Trump?
You know what? I can't think of anybody right now aside from,
And,
I mean, Bernie, but the
no,
United States is a conservative country, and as much as I like Bernie Sanders, it's just not going to happen. But you
well, and
throw him
Bernie.
out there because I think that's, if I had to make a choice, just put Bernie out there. But
See,
I think unfortunately a lot of people on the left think that Bernie can really pick up a lot of Republican votes, and I give him credit for trying. But this country's too
But see,
goddamn conservative.
and the other thing is, I'm sorry, Bernie's too old. I mean, I hate to say that because I don't know. He's 83. Can he last the whole time?
Yeah, well,
These long
first of all,
days-
Sandy said, "Now, this is my guy. I like Sheldon Whitehouse. He's just from a small
Okay.
state, so I don't think he's got a name.
Right,
He
right.
just doesn't have. But he's my
Right.
guy. I say Sheldon Whitehouse. He's at Whitehouse. He's an honest man, as far as I can know.
Right.
He's intelligent. He's always talking about the Federal Society, the big money, and all that.
Mhm.
Sheldon Whitehouse is the best. He is the
Mhm.
best, in my opinion. But he doesn't have a name, and that's just so unfortunate. And that's the
And
problem
then
with the Democratic Party.
And what did Sandy put up next? Because I didn't get a chance to read it. Something I
I think
saw.
she's talking about Pritzker. She said Sheldon Whitehouse, and
Then it came
she
up
said
with
Pritzker
something about
will
the-
make fun of his weight as he did, like with Christie.
Yeah, you know what, Sandy, that is my guy right now. But I don't think he. Again, I can tell you who it's not. It's not Gavin Newsom. Gretchen Whitmer, who thought was doing a good job. She's, she did the right thing for her state. She didn't kiss the ring of Trump, but she hung out with him. The guy I think is the smartest politician right out there now is Pete Buttigieg. John Ossoff is good. I think what Ossoff will become. Okay, Ossoff has to win Georgia. Has to be reelected in Georgia.
Right.
And that's where his focus is right now, because it appears that he's going to run against Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, I think that
How much faith do you have in the voters in Georgia?
a lot, and I'll tell you why.
Maybe the African American voters, but I don't know about the
Well, no, Atlanta is very progressive. It's not the South,
right.
So
But
it comes down.
It's not all of Georgia either.
It's got more votes in Atlanta than they do in the rest of the state. Did you know
That's
that?
true. This is true.
And so it comes to turnout then. And I do hope, and we're winding down quickly here, Pete will never win in this country. I'm hoping that you're not right, but I believe you are, Sandy, saying that. Maybe someday, I don't. Maybe things will be so bad. But this idea of the Democrats have to figure out how, and I think there just comes a time when, yes, you need experience. Yes, with time comes wisdom. But right now, we have to figure out, or the Democrats have to figure out, a way to get the voters that they lost last time and these other voters in. So I think the way I would do it is I would say, of course, I'm for all these rights. But right now, rights don't mean anything unless you can get economically stable. And that's whoever comes across as the best economic candidate, for the Democrats. I hope they get there, and I hope they can do something, because you're beginning to saw it today, see it everywhere, that Hispanic vote that went to Trump, not there. The African American male vote that went for Trump, he's plundering their history. So again, I'll ask the same question we always end with, or we've been ending with for a while. I will go first. I would say I am more optimistic today that Trump is in for a troubled future than I was this time last week. What say you, Brian?
I would tend to agree with you based on what I've seen the last 100 days. I sense his nervousness. I see how he flip-flops on tariffs, which means there's somebody saying something in his ear that he's listening to because he's afraid. He is a bully, but like a bully, he is intimidated by certain things.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, as I said, Dave, there's this determinism behind these people behind it who do know the ins and outs, and they're not going to give in. So I don't know how. I don't know that I can have your optimism yet. I know that you're not like really, really optimistic.
Well, I'm optimistic that Trump is beatable, but how?
In a fair election, it's beatable.
Yeah.
So Dave, all I know is I feel very sick about what's happening. I don't feel as though there's any real, like you would call hope. I don't see. I don't think there's any evidence that we're closer to getting rid of him, aside from the fact that he's frenetic, he's impulsive, and people are realizing that now. But the trump card, no pun intended, is there is a hate for liberals, and I get.
Oh, no question, Brian.
Get back to Russia. They had over 800 years, Dave, to change that country. They were so close, with Kerensky to having a democratic government. And they always fear, whenever they fear, it's all about the French Revolution, and they
and again, not to dispute what you're saying, but my belief is you are the Russian expert, no question about that. But the other thing I say, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, is that America knows what democracy should be. Russia never knew. Now it's a question. If there are people, 1/3 of the country, who believes that fascism is democracy, as long as their guy or girl
isn't it? Right. We'll just call it democracy because our guy's there.
Yeah, that's what it is. The last thing I want to say to people, I will miss you for the next 3 weeks. You'll hear my face, maybe my voice, but I will say this, and I never thought I would, Brian. This is something I never thought I would say. We're headed to Eastern Europe, a place we've never been. We've been very fortunate. We've been a number of places around the world. And as part of that trip, we're going to do two things. One is visit Auschwitz, and the other is spend a day in what was the Warsaw Ghetto, where some of the bravest people in the history of the world fought against some of the most heinous people in the world.
With a great advantage, too.
I know, and held off, for a while. I never thought, Brian, never in my wildest imagination did I think I'm going to go there now thinking this could be the United States of America.
Right. Or we could be part of Russia.
But I'm just saying, I just never, I plan to. So everybody.
And Sandy, by the way, I will get back to you, Sandy. I'm pretty liberal whenever we go on with that Russia thing, so that's fine. So, Dave, I'm sorry. You want to say?
No. That was it. That was it. Just the idea that, and the other part of that is, I would have bet every dollar that I ever made, which was about $16 total, I guess. No, that America could not turn fascist in 3 months. I was wrong. We are not turning fascist. We are fascists.
We are. Yes.
Okay.
We're lucky enough that we do have a certain portion of the population who is against him, and we're pretty tough, and we have the press. So it is a fascist government. I would agree 100%. As long as you have Trump and his cronies there, it's fascist. But they don't have complete control of everything, and that is the way we.
And that's right.
All right, Dave.
All right, Brian.
Have a wonderful and safe trip. Keep in contact.
What I'm going to do,
and
what I'm going to do, Brian, is I made a big poster of you, and I'm distributing it all over Europe. And saying, this is the man whose home you want to come to. And he's welcoming everybody. So just expect a lot of visitors.
And Dave, please, listen, I know you're in Eastern Europe, and there may be some intimidation involved there with their governments, but don't take any shit from them. If they come at you, get violent, do what you have to do. You will win.
Sure.
Because I think religious people think that God is on your side. And when you have God on your side, You're going to win. So you go ahead and you do what you.
But what if you don't think there's a God to be on your side?
No.
Have a good
Well,
one.
if there's determinism, there can't be a God, because then you can blame God on all the things that have happened if determinism is real.
All right, my man.
All right.
Okay.
Enough of that. We're getting too philosophical. All right. That's done.
See everybody. Thanks for listening, whether it's
All right,
live
everybody.
or on Memorex.
All right, Dave. Be well. Tell Judy I said hello, and I'll tell Ronnie you said
Will
hello.
do.
All right.
Same to Ronnie.
See you.